Yo, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another video. So we're heading into week 4 waiver wire. That's why you're here. And we still have 2 Monday night games. So I just want to put a quick disclaimer. Obviously, like last week, I posted this video usually on Monday morning, Monday afternoon before the Monday night games. So like last week, we lost Nick Chubb. Sadly, that hurts my soul. But I didn't get a chance to tell you guys about Jerome Ford. So obviously, like, hey, if Joe Mixon goes down, probably pick up the backup running back. Right? Probably pick up Chris Evans. But without further ado, let's look forward into week 4 as we had some not major injuries, but we did have one big receiver go down in the NFL for Mike Williams for the Chargers. So we'll talk about that later. And we had an explosion with the Miami Dolphins going off for 70 points. So let's get into the running backs. First, let's talk about the Tajay Spears and Zach Charbonnet. These are 3 guys that I'm really targeting on waiver wires. Now, it's different, right? Devon Achane has to be the number 1 guy to own this week. He just went off for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns on a 70-point Miami Dolphins win. I mean, with that's just insane. We've never seen a score. I think that's the most points probably in NFL history. So, yeah, that's insane. Actually, it was 2 points off. 2 points off, but still insane. Achane is weird because before this game, it was really the Raheem Mostert show. And now Achane just went off in that game. Do they decide to split that backfield a little bit more? Does he become the starting running back over Raheem Mostert? He looked explosive in that game. He looked fast. He looked like when he gets into open space, he's willing to actually make a lot of cuts and moves that I just don't think Raheem Mostert actually does. I think Mostert's good at getting the ball on a sweep, on a pitch, and hitting a hole, and then just running. I don't think he does a lot of cuts in the secondary, really makes guys miss. Achane looked like he had juice, so that's why I'm really interested in owning him. And I like Jeff Wilson, who's supposed to come back, I believe, in week 5. I think he's on the 4-week IR. But until then, I think Achane is easily the guy you pick up in waivers for, the week 4. He's 45% owned, so he's not available in every league. But if you have some fab, I know in one league he's available, and I have $70 left to fab. I don't think I'm putting all 70 in, but I'm definitely going to go $50. I'm probably going with $50, and I'm just going to go for it. I've seen what people did for Jerome Ford, where I had literally 2 different leagues where someone paid $75 and $76, and another league where someone paid, I think, $60. So for Achane, I think I'm willing to go pretty big. Tajay Spears, I'll talk about quickly, 31.6% owned. I talked about it last week too. He plays a lot of snaps for Tennessee. Now, Tennessee's offense looked terrible, but he's the pass-catching preference, when they're in a 2-minute drill. So he's going to get some passes thrown his way. Derrick Henry is obviously the main running back there, but, I said it before and I'll say it again. I said in another video earlier in the season, he's heading towards 2,000 career touches. Guys who do that usually wash out at age 28, 29, 30. And Henry's 29 right now. So I'm not saying he's going to bust or he's, going to be terrible the rest of the year, but he could start to break down. And I think Tajay Spears, if Henry isn't there, is legitimately like a league-winning player. I think he's a steal. I think Spears is a pretty good player. And Zach Charbonnet is the last guy I'll talk about for Seattle. Now, he's pretty owned. I mean, 58%, so basically 60% owned on Sleeper. But he falls into, he might start to get more run. He played a lot more in this past game, and he's just like the prime handcuff. If something happens to Kenneth Walker, which always seems to happen with Seattle running backs, injuries, Zach Charbonnet can step in and just be really good. Can just instantly be a starting running back for your fantasy team. A great flexed option at the bare minimum. So I think Zach Charbonnet is worth the pickup. And quickly, we'll talk about 3 handcuffs that I've really been eyeing. It's Rico Dottle, Tank Bigsby, and Zeke Elliott. Now, these guys all have different ownership percentages, like crazy variants. But Tank Bigsby finally got a little bit of carries, not much, not crazy, but he did score a goal line touchdown. So if Travis Etienne were to go down, I think Tank Bigsby would be the backup. Him and maybe Dearness Johnson would maybe split that job. But I like Tank Bigsby, rookie. We'll see what he has. Rico Dottle just happens to play a decent amount for the Cowboys. Not a ton, but he's definitely their go-to handcuff. He's the one that always is backing up Tony Pollard. So if something happens there, I think he's your guy. And Zeke Elliott. I think Zeke kind of sucks still, but he had some success on the ground last week. He ran 16 times, which he hasn't done really all season. Now, Stevenson did carry the ball 19 times, so I'm not trying to say that, he might play a lot. I don't know. I think that was a weird week where they just ran a ton. Next, let's just jump into the receivers. I feel like I'm bringing up the same guys every week because there really hasn't been anybody under the radar that's really broken out or is in a really prime situation, in my opinion. Tank Dell is the first guy. He's 47% owned. We talked about him and Nico Collins last week, and I think it's Tank Dell, man. I mean, I have an issue believing in it because he's really small. Like, I know we talk about small players, but he's listed at 5'10", 165 pounds. I don't think there's ever been a player that's 165 pounds. Not saying he can't be successful, but for him to really have like week in and week out value at that size is pretty just kind of hard for me to believe. I've never seen it before, but I'm not saying it's impossible. He's 48% owned, and in his last 2 games in PPR leagues, he's averaged 16 points and 23 points, and he scored 2 touchdowns. So he just looks like he might be maybe not the one target, but he's a partner with, I would say, Nico Collins, even though Collins had a bad last game. So I think Tank Dell could be useful for your fantasy teams for sure. Next is Romeo Doubs at 50% owned. He has 3 touchdowns on the year, and they seem like they want to go to him on the goal line. He's caught in 2 goal line fades so far. And Christian Watson, he might come back next week, but he's been battling this hamstring injury all season and just still hasn't made his way back yet. So if Romeo Doubs is just going to be a red zone threat that Jordan Love likes to go to, hey, why not throw him on the roster? Maybe you could flex him in every week and hopefully for the touchdown or hope for the touchdown. I think he had a decent amount of targets last game, so Romeo Doubs is definitely a target. And then let's talk about, I think the 2 biggest waiver wire guys for the receivers is going to be Quentin Johnson and Josh Palmer. Now, I like Josh Palmer more, and you might say that's crazy, but Quentin Johnson hasn't really played. He's 51% owned, but he hasn't been on the field. And I've heard nothing but bad reports out of camp and practice. And, it just doesn't seem like he's ready to be and step in to be a receiver. In weeks 1 and 2, he played 27 and then 15% of the snaps. Week 3, he played more, obviously, but that's because Mike Williams is out for the season with a torn ACL, which sucks because he was one of my guys this year. I was really looking forward to his season, and he was doing really well so far, but, throughout the season. But he's gone. So we have to look somewhere else. And I think Josh Palmer is actually my pick. I'm okay with picking up Quentin Johnson, but Josh Palmer is only 4% owned, played over 50% of snaps in both games. I think it was 60% in week 2. And he scored a touchdown last week and actually had like 8 targets and played, and scored and was productive. I'm just going to bet on Josh Palmer being the productive player because I've seen him do it in the NFL. I've seen him actually like play and be productive somewhat. And I just haven't seen Quentin Johnson do it. You might say that's a mistake, but maybe it's worth at least trying to get both these guys. And if you get Quentin Johnson, he's a good stash on the bench, and maybe he surprises everybody and is ready to play. And the last receiver I'll talk about is Rashid Shaheed at 45% owned. I just think he's a downfield player that's going to catch bombs. That's all it is. He's not going to get targeted 10 times a game because Chris Olave is good. Well, I think he's great. And Michael Thomas is still a good player. I mean, he's not going down the field too much, but he's still active and, short to intermediate routes, like slants. He's a slant boy. He's good at it. So Rashid Shaheed, though, he's going to get the 5 to 6 targets a game, and they're going to be shots. Derek Carr did go down with a shoulder injury, and I haven't heard any new news on it yet. If he's going to be out long, if it's just a stinger, if it's temporary, if it's long-term, I have no idea. But they do have Jameis Winston as their backup quarterback. And there's one thing we all know about Jameis Winston. The boy likes to throw the ball. And he's going to throw some deep shots. He's going to throw some crazy passes. But he's great for fantasy football purposes. I've seen him throw 30 touchdowns and 30 picks. So if Jameis Winston comes in and he's still that same guy, I think you're going to get some bomb shots to Rashid Shaheed. And it's going to be great for fantasy football pretty much any way. If it's Derek Carr, I'm in. If it's Jameis Winston, I'm still in. All right, and then lastly, let's talk about the tight ends. Sam Laporta at 72% owned. I mean, I know he's highly owned, but I think you have to have this guy on your team. He's first in the NFL in receiving yards. He's second in targets, and he's third in receptions out of tight ends. So he's been very productive this whole season. And, he's the only tight end, I think, that's had 5 catches in every game so far this season. And he had 80 yards last game and a touchdown, and he just looked really productive and good. Like, Jared Goff's just going to throw him the ball. I don't trust really a lot of the other receivers. I even said it last week when I told you to pick up Josh Reynolds. I said, I've just seen him kind of disappear, and I've seen him not be productive as a 28-year-old receiver. And what did he do last week? Absolutely nothing. So I think that Sam Laporta can just be a consistent tight end. And to do that for fantasy, You have to catch 4 to 5 passes a week and maybe go for 50 yards, and you had a good week. Sam Laporta, I'm in. The next tight end for me is Luke Musgrave, 25% owned. He's played a majority of the snaps. He's played 75% in every game. The last 2 games was 88 and 86%. So if you're going to give me a tight end on a team who likes to throw the ball, like the Packers have thrown the ball a decent amount. Jordan Love's looked pretty good. Luke Musgrave, I'm sure, I'll take it. Tight ends are so bad that I want guys who are on the field and guys who are going to get targeted. He had 8 targets in his last game. So, hey, Luke, congrats. You're on my team now, man. Really great job. And then the last tight end is Jake Ferguson, 33% owned. I'm just going to say targets, baby. He gets targeted in the red zone. He has 9 targets inside the 20-yard line. 9 targets. No one else. That's the most in the NFL. And then he has 5 inside the 5-yard line in 3 games. If you're not going to get a productive tight end that isn't Kittle, Andrews, I guess Waller, and Kelsey, then you got to go for a touchdown every week. And I think that's Jake Ferguson. I don't know if he's good. I've seen him drop like 400 passes, but if they're going to target him in the red zone, cool. I'll take the shot. And if not, if he doesn't score for me, then he's just like every other tight end in the NFL. And all right, those were my week 4 waiver wire pickups. It wasn't the strongest group of people, and you'll notice that as the season goes on because we kind of know by now who's who and who's not. It's still early in the season, of course, but don't blow all your fabs so early. Make sure you stick around, maybe blow it on Achane. But outside of that, stay cool this week. If you can't get Achane, I would really try to hold on to my money. Maybe Josh Palmer would be my next pickup. But I wouldn't go crazy. Maybe 10 to 15% of your fab budget. Or if you have the waiver wire spot up there, you can go for it. I'm not afraid of it, but don't be surprised if these guys just aren't super productive. Like I said, it wasn't the strongest class, but Achane's my guy, and everyone else, meh. I'll see you guys next week. Good luck in week 4.